Good morning, Suzuki Science, grade 10s. Hopefully my delay in uploading your lesson for the week has not actually put you behind. We are looking at a brand new unit. We are now doing climate change. So I will go over your physics, optics, carousel, and give you some feedback so you know where you are in the class. I will also send out some kind of I guess a chart or an email to you letting you know what level you're sitting at currently as a combination of your pre-March break mark and the work that you've done since. A number of you have gone up. Quite a few of you have been doing the work have gone up in some form, whether that's a percent or 5. Others of you who have not been able to demonstrate any work, clearly I can't modify your mark in any way. So with this week, we're doing a couple of things. We're focusing on climate change. That's the remainder of the course. We have 3 weeks or so left, and in that unit we are going to be focusing on how climate change affects the planet, both regarding ecosystems and nature and weather systems and climate systems and water and atmosphere, you name it. I also want to bring us back to a larger social issue as well. There's been a lot of things going on in the world. I mean, we've been out of school for 3 months now. It's been 12 weeks. This is the 12th week, I believe. And in addition to the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, we also have some interesting times, I guess we'll call them. So over the past few weeks, I've also been doing a question of the week, and the question of the week has been focused on things like conspiracy theories and the people's belief as to where the coronavirus originated, what parts of the world or countries have been associated with the coronavirus, and if you were able to travel somewhere, where would you go, and other things as well. This week's question of the week is going to be around climate science, which makes sense, coronavirus, which also makes sense, as well as some of the social injustices, I guess we'll call it, that's been running rampant around the United States especially. We're seeing a little bit more up here in Toronto area, and there's a lot of protests and rallies across the globe. So the question of the week is normally launched on Tuesday. This week, the question of the week is actually an embedded part of this week's worksheet. So as you look at this worksheet, you'll notice that I've talked about a number of things that you've probably seen on the media. So I've done this in the question of the week format, and I've given you several resources. Some of them you might have seen already. If you're not able to access the New York Times articles, because you generally only get 3 or 4 or 5 free ones, then let me know, because I have captured the articles and I can share them in another location for you. As you go through this, I encourage you to collaborate with your classmates and consider each of you taking an article or skimming through it and then sharing that idea with each other. That's this box here. It's a takeaway message for each of those. One's an Insta post, one's a tweet, and other 3 or 4 articles. I don't expect you to read them all. It's a lot of reading, or listen to this 18-minute video, but it's very interesting. I would encourage you to do so, but you decide how much time you would like to spend. And then at the end of this, I ask you these questions, and these questions are connecting a bunch of, they might seem like very different ideas: coronavirus, climate science, and social injustice. They don't seem initially that they make a lot of sense together. So I'm looking to see if you can make that connection. You'll be posting your initial response in the question of the week document, which is linked right here. So even if you haven't participated in the past, the question of the week this time is a part of the worksheet. Once you've posted up your answers, and the other classes have posted up their answers as well, I'd encourage you over the next 3 or 4 days to go back and read through other people's responses and get a feeling for where they think where their mind is. And then at the end of the week, you can do your final response. Okay, so it's for some of you, it might be your initial response copied and pasted. Some of you, it might be slightly modified based on the collaborative think of the larger group. And then, of course, there's the actual worksheet. The worksheet's focusing on climate science, specifically greenhouse gases and greenhouse gas effect. You'll notice I put a lot of things in here in yellow. What I've done is I've done it slightly differently this time, in that I've given you a PowerPoint. So here's the PowerPoint. You'll notice that the PowerPoint has not a lot of green. So the minimum here is actually quite minimum. And there's quite a bit of the purple for the exemplary, the elaborate, the details. and then of course yellow for complete. So you decide how much of this you'd like to go through. This is a resource. There's a resource that has a lot of information. You decide how much information that you want to go through. Okay, and what you're doing as you go through this is you're going through these resources, including the PowerPoint, which is listed here, and at the end of this, you're answering a bunch of questions. So the major question is here: explain the greenhouse gas effect and why it's significant. And you can use any format you'd like to answer that question. You might want to use words, you might want to use a diagram and then copy it, or take a photograph of it. You want to use sketch notes, which is what I normally use, which is a combination of diagrams and words, whatever you'd like to use. That's the major question. So they notice that's in green. And there's a bunch of other things. These are important pieces that you should be picking out of the videos, the simulations, the resources, the PowerPoint. They're important, and that's why I have highlighted them as separate questions. If you answer these questions, they'll really help you get a very complete answer to your major question. All right? So at the end of this, you'll notice there's a CO2 dataset instructions. So in the Google Classroom, you'll see a link to a Google Sheet, and then these are specific instructions on how to modify that Google Sheet. Since I have this open, I will quickly demonstrate as well how you'd manipulate it. So the first set of instructions tell you to highlight columns A and B. So to do that, you click on A, you hold the Shift button, you click on B, and then it says to click on the chart button icon. That inserts a chart. Then you want a scatter plot. You scroll down to get to the scatter plot. Notice this, the numbers here, it goes from 0 to 500, but there's nothing between 0 and 300, so I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to go over here to Customize, and I'm going to go down here to Vertical Axis, and I want a minimum value of 300. Seems good. I'm going to make sure that I'm happy with the titles. I'm probably going to change this up title here. So now I can close the screen, and I'm going to make my chart bigger so I can actually make out some details. If I had a bigger screen, I can make it even bigger. And once I have this that I'm happy with, I can take this chart, I can copy it, and then I can paste it into the document. And I can use this to demonstrate a better understanding of how climate change, greenhouse gas effect, and greenhouse gases are related. So that's what this CO2 data set instructions are. And you'll see that there's a group of questions associated with it. And these questions will help you get a more complete answer. I put this after the major question because I didn't want it to, kind of pollute the flow of the lesson. But really, you'd be doing the CO2 data set instructions first, and then answering your major question, which is the last thing. So one of the simulations I'm getting you to play with is this FET simulation, and you're going to be shining light photons at various greenhouse gases, and it's very straightforward to play with. You have the slider that allows you to turn it on or off, so I'm going to turn it all the way up. You have microwave, infrared, visible light, and ultraviolet lights, so you can play with any one of those. So let's say I'm playing with visible light. I hit the play button, and it'll start shooting photons at that particular greenhouse gas, in this case carbon monoxide. So in this simulation, you're going to play with all these different gases. Some are greenhouse gases, some are not, and you'll notice depending on which kind of light you use, you might see a different type of reaction. So you're going to note that and use that to help you get a better understanding of how greenhouse gases do what they do. As always, this is due on Friday. If you have any questions whatsoever, make sure you send me an email. If you'd like to meet one-on-two, one-on-three, one-on-one, let me know, and we can always Google Meet, and I can answer questions directly as well. All right, have a fantastic week. Enjoy the exercise, the activity. I encourage you to really think about what's happening in the world and make sure that you are a part of the solution as we move forward.